one of the biggest stories has been in the Eastern Conference, and I want to stay here real quick, has been the Jimmy Butler saga and what's going on in Miami. And it's a tough situation because there's a lot of things going on with regards to them trading Jimmy Butler. It's not as simple as just moving him on to another team because of his current salary structure and his player option next year, which is about $52 million. And, of course, Jimmy is not going to opt out of that unless he opts out with Miami to have them trade him to a team that has the cap space that can fit him, and then he can work out a deal with them. But the drama around it is something interesting that has kind of followed Jimmy in different places. Chicago, Minnesota, Philadelphia, and now, in Miami, where you thought that was a perfect fit. Like, he culturally fit what Miami is all about. And we talk about it and tease it and talk about, the culture in Miami and what it means. But it is something tangible. It is something real. But somewhere along the line, the marriage kind of split. And without kind of knowing all the intricate details, you can only pick at the tea leaves to see what took place and what's going to happen. Ultimately, Miami and Jimmy are going to have to make a decision. One, if we're not going to trade you, you're going to be here. What does that look like? You can't just sit out. The NBA made the rule after John Wall in Houston where you just can't sit out a player, send them home. That's in the collective bargaining agreement, so that's not going to happen. The trade is not as simple because of the money that's involved. You just can't, because of the second apron, the way the new rules are, you just can't send Jimmy out and aggregate salaries and get it back and make it work. So it may involve 2 to 3 teams, maybe 4 teams, in order to get all these pieces moving, to get Jimmy to a spot, to get Miami in a place where they can get some draft capital, some assets, and get some young players that can contribute, a player that can contribute now but doesn't have a long-term deal. And I think that's where Miami is at right now. They say, well, why don't you get Bradley Beal? Well, one, they don't want the extension that he has or what's left on his money, which is over $50 million, not this year but next year. So I know they don't want that. They can disperse that kind of money with 2 to 3, 4 different players without having the burden of carrying that with Bradley Beal. So if you don't get Bradley Beal, that means you have to involve another team in order for these moves to make. So I'm very intrigued, very interested to see what happens with this, because the team that takes Jimmy has to understand what comes with Jimmy. They have to be comfortable with that. And then the other moving parts have to be comfortable with what they get in return, because February 6th is the end of the trade deadline. So we're going to keep our eye on that to see what moves are being made. Now, Phoenix has already done a trade swap with Utah, their 2031 first-round draft pick. They swapped with Utah to get the 25, 27, and 29 first-round draft picks. So that gives them more draft assets, capital, that if they do want to make a move with Beal, that now they're not only moving a player or two, but they have some assets. So let's keep our eye on that in the upcoming week, since the trade deadline is slated to end on February 6th. Check out new episodes of The Jim Jackson Show every Thursday. Watch on The Rich Eisen Show YouTube page. Follow the show on Instagram @Jim Jackson Show, or listen wherever you get your podcasts.